好，谢谢主席。女士们、先生们，大家下午好。下面，我代表全球能。
behalf of GEIDCO, I will brief you on the Global Energy Interconnection Backbone Grid report. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about the background and the content of this report. Establishing GEI is the key to fully implementing UN 2030 agenda and Paris Agreement to effectively address climate change and achieve sustainable human development. GEIDCO GEI Backbone Grid is one way to connect the grid and to develop clean energy on a large scale to achieve optimization and allocation of resources across the world. It is the key of building GEI. GEIDCO has contributed a lot of effort in doing researches on this front, and the content includes 3 areas. We researched on the power trends, clean energy distribution, and power flow layout. We also researched on the scheme of GEI Backbone Grid. Thirdly, we studied systematically on the value and benefits. My report is divided into 4 areas. First of all, what are the challenges and how do we transition in this new era? The world energy development faces 4 challenges. They are scarce resources, environmental pollution, climate change, and energy poverty. Based on the current drilling intensity, the explored and proven coal and oil gas resources can only last for 100 years and 50 years separately for exploration. At the same time, exploring fossil fuel has caused environmental pollution, which caused climate change. Over the past 50 years, CO2 accumulatively has emitted 1.9x, and temperature rise is 1 already. If by the end of the century we want to limit it to 2 degrees rise, then CO2 emission can only be emitted for only 20 years, and the world developed in an unbalanced way. 1.06 billion people still don't have access to electricity. They're mostly in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. In order to rise up to the challenges, we have to speed up transition of energy. The mind is to develop green, low-carbon, clean energy and accelerate implementation of 2 replacements, 1 increase and 1 restore. The 2 replacements are using clean energy to replace, using hydro, wind, solar to replace fossil. And the fossil-dominant mix will transition towards renewable dominant and fossil as a system, as auxiliary methods to achieve low carbon. The energy consumption should also use electricity to use coal burning, natural gas, oil, and other fossil fuels. Electricity will replace all the other natural resources. Power generated from afar in a clean way will be used. We also need to increase the electrification. Electricity's percentage in the terminal consumption should be improved. Decreased energy intensity is another way. 1 restore means to restore fossil fuel resources to its basic attribute to be used as industrial raw and provide more values for economic and social development. Speeding up energy transition is to build GEI. The clean energy distribution is abundant, but distribution is uneven. Wind, photovoltaic are random and intermittent. Only when they are part of the greater connected grid can clean energy in a large scale, can we allocate and efficiently use them on a large scale. Next, we'd like to talk about the trend and layout of global energy and power development. The main feature is that the energy demand is still growing. Clean energy percentage is increasing continuously. By 2050, energy used for power generation will be 26 billion coal equivalent, which is 1% annual increase. By 2070, energy used for power consumption will be 28 billion tons of coal equivalent. And in the meanwhile, the mix will be optimized. By 2025, the fossil fuel consumption will peak out. Post that, it will decrease. Around 2040, clean energy's percentage in power generation will overtake that of fossil fuels and become a dominant energy source. Percentage of clean energy will go up from 22% around 2015 to 70% in 2050 and 80% in 2070, and achieving the replacement of clean energy. When energy is increasing, the electrification level will also advance. 2050, global terminal and energy consumption will reach 16.8 billion coal equivalent, which is 0.15% annual growth. By 2040, electricity will overtake oil to become the largest percentage of terminal energy source. Electricity percentage will go from 18% in 2015 to 44.1% in 2050 to 49.2% in 2070. We project the power consumption speed will grow faster than energy consumption speed. There will be 60 trillion kilowatt hour by 2050, which is 3% growth, and 3x that of energy growth. By 2070, it will reach 71 trillion kilowatt hour by 2070. Let's look per capita. Per capita electricity will grow from 6,180 kilowatt hour in 2050 to 6,720 kilowatt hour in 2070. By 2070, it will grow to 6,720 kilowatt hour. Now let's look at different continents. Asia, power consumption percentage will rise. In 2050, Asia will take 61% of global energy power consumption. Africa, South America is also leading in speed. In Africa, the annual growth rate is about 4 to 5%. South America will be about 2 to 4%. Europe, North America, Oceania, the per capita power consumption is quite high. In the mid to long term, it will also grow slowly. As clean energy technology is developing rapidly, the cost will go down. At the same time, fossil fuels costs will go up. Power, wind, photovoltaic will become more cost-effective. We project by 2025, photovoltaic and onshore wind competitiveness will overtake coal and gas-generated power. Photovoltaic, photo heating, onshore and offshore wind will go down. By 2050, they will be reduced to 2 to 3 US dollar cents per kilowatt hour and 6 to 7 US dollar cents and 4 cents, 6 cents per kilowatt hour respectively. Now let's look at installment capacity. Clean energy's percentage installment capacity will overtake that of fossil fuel to become a major source for power generation. By 2050, 2070, the installed capacity will be separately 26 billion kilowatt hour and 31.9 billion kilowatt hour. By 2030, we'll look at a pivotal point, a transitional year. By 2030, the installment capacity of clean energy will be larger than that of fossil fuel to become a dominant power generation force. By 2030, coal power generation installment capacity will peak out. All the continents have plenty of solar, wind, and hydropower. We have to comprehensively look at each region's advantage to prioritize specific projects on these. The solar power are mostly in North Africa, West Asia, Central Asia, western part of China, western part of the US, Mexico, Chile, and Australia. The solar farm by 2050 have a planned installment capacity of 3.48 billion kilowatt hour. Let's look at the wind power. Most of the wind farms are in Arctic Greenland, Sakhalin Island, Okhotsk Sea, and western part of China, North Sea in Europe, central part of US, and southern part of Argentina. These wind farm bases have a lot of potential. We're looking at 13 billion kilowatt hour of potentials, and by 2050 we're looking at 1.93 billion kilowatt hour of installment potential. Now let's look at hydro, and most of them in China are located in Jinshan, Yalu, and Mekong and Irrawaddy River. In Africa, it's Congo and Nile. In South America, it's Amazon river base. Sweden, Norway, Finland are also places where hydropower exists. They're about 1.3 billion kilowatt hour. And by 2000, in the future, we're looking at 900 million kilowatt hour of installment capacity. Power flow. We'll see a lot of intercontinental, interregional power flow. But the intercontinental power flows at the beginning. By 2035, in total, there will be 280 gigawatts of power flow across continent and region. And among that, 50 gigawatts is intercontinental. By 2050, the clean energy base will enter into a large-scale development phase. Around the world, we'll see allocation and optimization of clean energy in a complementary way, in a way that crosses regions and time. 2050, a lot of there will be 720 gigawatts of power across regions and continents. 130 gigawatts is intercontinental. By 2070, 1.25 terawatt of power is intercontinental or interregional, of which 430 gigawatt is intercontinental. Let's look at Asia's power flow map. We see power going from west to east, from north to south. We see that Africa and Europe is interconnected in a complementary way. By 2050, intercontinental and interregional power flow will reach 342 gigawatt, of which intercontinental will be 79 gigawatt. Europe power flow map. The overall map is going from north to south, connecting Asia and Africa. By 2050, intercontinental, interregional power flow will reach 180 gigawatt, of which intercontinental will reach 109 gigawatt. Let's look at Africa power flow. The overall feature within the continent is to send power from central to north and south of Europe. And Europe and Asia will be connected in a complementary way. In 2050, intercontinental and interregional power flow will reach 146 gigawatt, of which intercontinental power will reach 78 gigawatt. Now, America. North and south complement each other. West power goes to east, north power goes to south. By 2050, inter-regional power will reach 192 gigawatt, of which North and South America exchange will reach 10 gigawatt. 3, let's talk about the backbone grid of GEI. In the preliminary round, we collected a lot of information. We also drafted the global grid map based on the voltage, and this has laid a strong foundation for our research on backbone grid of GEI. Let's look at the screen. This is the map we draw. It's a global grid map. In the grid situation, power plants in major countries are all shown on the map. All the numbers have been collected. We constructed a large-scale database in which there are transmission lines, power generation plants, hydropower stations, thermal, gas power plants, as well as wind farm, solar photovoltaic, all kinds of power generation plants. Its installment capacity, its power generation capacity, transmission voltage specification, 35 kV lines and above are all incorporated into this database. All the data can be overlaid on any map, and you'll be able to see clearly the distribution of power generation plants and the grid. Take China, for instance. You'll be able to see a lot of power plants and grid network. Of course, these are all written in Chinese. Our foreign friends might not be able to recognize what they are, but if you overlay the information on an English map, then you'll be able to see where these information is. In India, it's also very dense. They have 400 kV and 750 kV lines. Those form the backbone of power grids in India. Let's look at Europe. The density of grids in Europe is also dense. They have different voltage specs, and we use different color to mark that. In Europe, we overlaid the information on an English map. Let's switch to America. American grid network is also dense. It looks like this. South America, in Brazil, very dense grids.
As we see developments are uneven in Africa, especially sub-Saharan Africa, there's lack or no access to electricity for many people. The grids are sparse with low voltage levels. This database has captured hundreds of thousands of data points, providing a solid foundation for our grid research. In addition, we have charted global oil and gas pipelines, which encompasses crude oil, natural gas, and oil products. As you can see, in Europe, the natural gas pipelines are densely deployed. And we can see a large number of oil fields and gas fields on this map. The red colors refer to the natural gas pipelines, green for crude oil, while blue for oil products pipelines. We have all the parameters for those pipelines, the diameters and the working pressure, the flow pressure, and the annual capacity of the pipeline. the volume shipped. Let's take a look at the United States. Oil and gas pipelines kind of dense. If you take a look at the Gulf of Mexico region, you can see the large number of natural gas fields around the Gulf of Mexico. United States is not only a big energy consumer, but also a major energy producer with densely located facilities and pipelines. All that information is in our database. It's not just a map. It represents tens of thousands of parameters. And in the case of China, we don't have that much oil and gas resources, hence less of a density for the oil and gas pipelines in contrast to the US and Europe. So with basic parameters and data in place, we are well positioned to research into the global energy landscape. In addition, we are also capturing data about oil and exploitation via ocean shipping. In conclusion, we have a very clear and comprehensive picture about the energy production, consumption, and transportation. Please switch back to my PowerPoint presentation mode. The backbone GEI features UHV, DC, VSC, HV, and submarine cables linking major clean energy production centers with major load centers, delivering multi-energy, multi-time zone, cross-season and global strategic allocation across 5 continents and 4 oceans, and between the east and the west, between the north and south. Indeed, a global platform. Going forward with the upgrading of the power grids and interconnection, globally we are going to have 18 synchronous or combined power grids, including 6 in Asia, 4 in Europe, and 3 in Africa, and 4 in Americas, and 1 in Oceania. In the future, we're going to have 9 vertical and 9 lines in the backbone structure, connect clean energy production centers with load the global cross-seasonal global allocation of resources. So let's take a look at the Arctic artery from Norway to Russia through the Bering Strait to Alaska of the United States across 19 time zones, covering 80% of the connectivity of the northern hemisphere in terms of power systems. It's represented in red. It's 12,000 kilometers long. Second, let's take a look at the Eurasian link with Kazakhstan, China, Germany, France, and China linked together, delivering clean energy from Central Asia to China, leveraging the UHV, DC, UHV, AC synchronous grids. The third link is the southern branch of the Eurasian, linking Southern Europe, West Asia, South Asia, Central Asia, with supporting, transmitting the solar power from Central Asia eastward and the hydropower in China, Southeast Asia westward. 9,000 kilometers. Next one is the northern Asia link, linking South Asia and West Asians, 5 North African countries, so that solar power from Saudi Arabia and West Asia through 1,000 kV AC delivered to Morocco with a total length of 9,500 kilometers. And the next one is the Asia-Africa link with the Congo River hydropower and the West Asia linked so that the solar of the West Asia and the hydro of West Africa can come to complement each other. And then the northern part of the North American links, linking the western grid and the eastern grid of Canada. In the future, we can take in wind from North Pole. The total length is 4,500 kilometers. The seventh link is the southern part of the North American links, traversing the United States with the central part wind, the hydropower along the Mississippi River with a total length of 5,000 kilometers. Number 8, the northern part of the South American with Venezuela, Guyana, French, Colombia, Suriname, and Brazil and other countries with a total length of 3,500. One is the southern part of the South America with the Amazon River Valley, Bolivia, Peru, and Chile, all the way to the low centers in southeastern Brazil with a total length of 3,000 kilometers. So those are the 9 horizontal lines and the 9 vertical lines. The first one from Iceland to the UK, France, Spain, Morocco, West Africa, all the way to South Africa. And to the north, it goes through the Greenlands with the western hemisphere, so that the North Sea wind power is delivered to Europe, while the hydropower from Congo is delivered to North Africa and other part of South Africa, and there will be a joint transmission to Europe. The total length is 15,000 kilometers. And then the second one is the middle section of the linking North Europe to North Africa through Austria, Germany, countries traversing the entire European continent. It goes in the south with a total length of 4,500 section from Barents Sea through St. Petersburg, Baltic Sea, Ukraine, the Balkans, Cyprus, Egypt, to South Africa, so that the wind from the North Baltic Sea will be transported to Africa, while the hydropower from the Nile, other part of North Africa and South Africa, and the solar from Africa to Europe with a total length of 14,000 kilometers. And then the western section of the vertical links in Asia, linking the solar power bases in West and Central Asia, together with the hydropower bases in Russia, with multi-energy source integration. In the future, it will be extended to the Kara wind power base around the North Pole, with a total length of 5,500 kilometers. And the middle section of the vertical Asian links, linking hydropower from Russia, northeast China's wind and solar power production, and southwestern China's hydropower, extending all the way to part of South Asia with a total length of 1,500 kilometers. And the eastern section of the Asia-Pacific linkage, linking Russia, China, other part of Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, etc., so that the clean energy basis in the Far East, China and Southeast Asia is transmitted to the low centers. In the future, it can take in wind from the north, going all the way to Australia in the south with a total length of 19,000 kilometers. And the seventh vertical line in the western edge of the Americas through Vancouver, the West Coast, and Mexico with a UHVAC synchronous grid, so that the clean energy from North America, such as solar and wind, will be fully utilized. It goes away all the way southward to Chile, so that solar and wind of the Americas will be mutually supportive of each other. The eighth vertical line is in the middle section of the Americas, starting from Manitoba of Canada, going through North Dakota of the United States, going south through Texas, and all the way to the city of Mexico, so that the hydro from Canada, the wind from the United States in the middle will be transmitted to load centers. There will be mutual complementarity between the north and the south with clean energy. It is as long as 4,000 kilometers. And the ninth vertical line is the eastern section of the Americas from Quebec through Florida to the South America, so that hydro from Canada, wind from the United States will be transmitted to load centers and going all the way southward through the West Indies, the Caribbeans, to the eastern edge of South America. It is as long as 16,000 kilometers. By 2035, the 5 vertical and 5 horizontal interconnected linkages will be established with new transmission lines as long as 68,000 kilometers with 280 million kilowatts. By 2050, we're going to have 7 vertical and 7 horizontal arteries with 177,000 kilometers of newly added transmission lines, 720 million kilowatts of capacity, entailing a total investment of $390 billion US dollars. Starting from 2050, the Arctic artery will enjoy accelerated development so as to make sure the Arctic renewable energy production will become a major base of supply to achieve even higher, bigger scale of interconnectivity. So those continental schemes are a very important part of the backbone for Asia by 2050, involving China, Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, West Asia, alike, with 6 major synchronous grids. The interconnects will be further enhanced so as to achieve the mutual complementarity involving solar power from Central Asia and West Asia, wind and solar from northwestern China, and hydro from Southeast Asia and Southwest China transmitted to load centers in Eastern China, Northeast Asia, and South Asia, with a lot of interregional mutual complementarity and dispatching. Then talking about Europe, by 2050, VSC-UHV-DC grid will be in place so as to integrate clean power from North Africa and West Asia and Central Asia. So continental Europe grid as the core, it will connect power from the North Sea and the North Pole, hydropower from the North and North Africa, West Asia and Central Asia. The energy interconnections in Africa, North Africa and Central Western Africa and South Eastern Africa, the synchronous grids with 1,000 kV AC. The large solar energy bases will be connected with load centers for the Central Western synchronous grid and the Southeastern synchronous grid. 400 kV and 765 kV AC interconnect will be leveraged so that clean energy will be leveraging UHV DC for transmission. Let's take a look at North America. In the east and in the west, there will be a synchronous grid by 2050. Between Mexico and other Central American countries, 500 kV synchronous grid will be in place. And in Brazil, there will be a structure of 3 horizontal and 2 vertical lines with a 1,000 kV AC interconnect, so that hydropower from the Amazon River, solar from Chile, and wind from Argentina will be combined in an effective way. By 2050, there will be a total of $38 trillion US dollars invested in GEI, including 27 trillion of in generation and 11 trillion US dollars of investment in grid. Well, the last part is about the overall benefits, effects. GEI is very in global peace, prosperity, openness, innovation, civilization, a bit to build a community of shared destiny for mankind. economic, social, environmental, and political implications for the rollout of GEI. Economically speaking, it can ensure continuous and clean energy and power supply to fuel global economic growth. GEI cumulatively will call for $38 trillion of investment, fueling global economic growth of 0.2% on an annual basis. In the case of Africa, it is the most notable. It can push up African GDP annual growth by 0.4%, and it can effectively reduce the generation cost by 2050. The per kilowatt hour generation cost will be reduced to 2.8 cents US, so that $1.8 trillion of electricity bill can be saved every year. Socially speaking, it can ensure all people have access to electricity by 2035. Electricity penetration will increase to 95%, reducing the electricity-less population by 60%. By 2050, almost everyone has to electricity. And it can 8 million and 10 million cases of a disease, and it can jumpstart a lot of new job opportunities by 2050. 100 million new jobs created by GEI and GEI. It can also satisfy the daily increasing power of mankind. Environmentally speaking, by 2050, CO2 emission from energy consumption can be controlled at around 11.8 billion tons. By 2070, there will be net zero CO2 emission from the energy sector in response to climate change. It can also reduce the discharge of pollutants. It can replace fossil energy on an annual basis equivalent to 18.6 billion tons of standard coal. It can help reduce the pollutants of SO2, NOxes, and inhalable particles. And it can save at least 100 billion cubic meters of water for the use of electricity generation to improve the ecology and environment.
Politically, it can also increase mutual political trust and enhance world peace. As a result, different peoples, faiths, cultures, and geographic location, different systems can be more united, and this will serve the construction of a shared destiny of the mankind. Lastly, we hope through the research on the backbone grid, we can champion the allocation and development of new energy, clean energies, so that different regions and organizations can synergize our efforts in research and promote the clean energy-based development and work with different continents and countries in connecting the grid. We hope to increase our exchanges and communications, share the results with all parties, and promote the implementation of ideas so that we can achieve the GEI faster. Also, welcome to log on to our website for download. We've already activated the downloading link. Thank you all.